destruction and hatred. Mr. President, this committed body has been debating Palestine for many decades, and some of the best and most astute brains in the world have failed to achieve much more than piecemeal and half-won compromises. Promise, yes, a lot of promise. Perhaps this moment of global introspection, with its fear of a potential to escalate into another Balkan crisis reminiscent of World War I, will result in something more than safe corridors or 20 trucks a day bringing critical aid to 2 million people, or the staggered release of innocent hostages, all of them victims. And all these things are necessary and they are needed, but are they enough? The Sovereign Order of Malta, on behalf of the world's forgotten, of the sick and the poor, appeals to everyone in this room to find a path to peace in the Holy Land, a path that is rooted in justice and humanitarian law, a path that will finally turn swords into plowshares and which will end the suffering and the privation of the innocent. A solution, we hope, that will hold fast to the revealed truth of Allah, of Yahweh, and of our Heavenly Father, the one God of the three Abrahamic faiths, who, at one and the same time, is a God of mercy, a God of love, and a God of compassion, but above all, a God of forgiveness. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank His Excellency, Mr. Beresford Hill, for his statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Guyana.
Thank you, Mr. President. Guyana aligns itself with the statement of NAM, OIC, and the CHIRPP. The delegation of Guyana expresses its grave concern over escalating violence between Palestine and Israel following the attack on Israel by Hamas on 7th October. The ongoing violations of international law, including international humanitarian law, are taking an increasing and unacceptable human toll, with innocent civilians, especially women, children, and the elderly, bearing the brunt of this unfolding tragedy. We unequivocally condemn the 7th October attack on Israel and the violence that has ensued being now perpetrated by both sides. The continuing bloodshed has created a veritable human cauldron with the very present risk of boiling over beyond the immediate parties concerned. We call for an immediate end to the hostilities and for prompt relief for the victims who are enduring immense suffering engendered by these events. We strongly urge the parties to lay down their arms and to ensure the protection of civilians in accordance with international law and international humanitarian law. Mr. President, the debilitating humanitarian crisis in Gaza is at risk of becoming further deepened and protracted, involving, inter alia, mass displacements, severe medical emergencies, acute food insecurity, and aggravated socioeconomic complications. The overwhelming human costs of the current hostilities compel the most urgent efforts to de-escalate the situation. We are therefore concerned at rhetoric that suggests that de-escalation may yet be a long way off. And we call on those with influence on the parties to spare no effort in working for an urgent and comprehensive ceasefire. Guyana acknowledges the unstinting efforts of the United Nations agencies and other actors on behalf of the population in the Gaza Strip under extremely difficult circumstances. The entrance of first aid convoy into Gaza last Saturday was an important fruit of these efforts. We appeal to the parties to ensure that aid can reach the people of Gaza without conditions, in a safe, dependable, and unimpeded manner. Guyana stresses the importance of a comprehensive ceasefire in this vein. Mr. President, my delegation remains conscious of the long-standing suffering of the Palestinian people under illegal occupation and blockade of their territory. This decades-long indignity must be brought to an end. The United Nations, indeed this Council, must do more to ensure that it is no longer business as usual. We must be deliberate and committed to reinvigorating both the peace process with a view to the crucial realization of the two-state solution. We must work for a just and lasting resolution to the question of Palestine. This is our duty, and the stability of the entire region rests upon this. Guyana notes with regret that the Security Council has so far failed to fulfill its charter obligations in providing a definitive response to the current situation, despite the commendable efforts that were engaged to that end. Silence cannot be an option for this body, which holds primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. In our assessment, the drafts presented, while not fully addressing all of the crucial elements requiring attention at this stage, nonetheless contained critical humanitarian elements that must be immediately addressed to bring relief to the civilian population suffering on account of the hostilities. My delegation's appeal to this Council is to unite, to send a clear message to the people of Israel and Palestine that you stand with them, that you recognize the suffering that they have endured and are enduring, and that you have collectively decided to respond on the side of international law. The lives of men, women, and children depend on this, and I urge that this responsibility not be taken lightly. Mr. President, I thank you.
I thank the representative of Guyana for their statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Cambodia.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, first may I express my appreciation to you, Mr. President, for convening today's debate under the agenda item Situation of the Middle East, including the Palestinian question. The recent escalation of conflict and violence in the region is of great concern. My delegation joins others in mourning the loss of so many innocent lives, including one Cambodian. We convey deepest sympathies and condolences to the families of those killed on both sides in the ongoing conflict. Cambodia condemns all acts of violence and terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. Under all circumstances, we urge for peace to be prioritized, to enable both nations to exercise their rights to development rather than suffering and enduring war. It is of utmost importance to address the root causes of the Palestine-Israel conflict if both nations are to coexist in harmony. Mr. President, allow me to put forth 3 points on the recent developments in the Middle East. First, it is heartbroken to see the increasing number of civilian casualties and the pain they endure. My delegation urges all parties to exercise utmost restraint, abide by the international humanitarian law, and constructively engage in dialogues to de-escalate the situation and achieve a ceasefire or a humanitarian pause. Second, civilian lives and safety must be protected from harm in conflicts. Therefore, my delegation urges all sides not to target civilians and civilian infrastructure, and to allow humanitarian access for the delivery of essential aid such as food, water, medicine to those in need in accordance with the international humanitarian law. Third, we call the Security Council and the international community to unite in a spirit of solidarity and sincerity to foster a meaningful dialogue and negotiation leading to a just and lasting peace. To conclude, Mr. President, my delegation welcomed the convening of the 10th emergency special session by the President of the General Assembly on this important topic on Thursday this week. We hope that it will result in positive outcome. Finally, may I salute the dedication and sacrifice of members of the UN staff to bring relief and help the people in need. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the representative of Cambodia for their statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Italy.
Mr. President, let me first thank Minister Vega for chairing this important open debate. I would like also to convey to him, the Foreign Minister of Italy, Antonio Tajani's deep appreciation following the direct contacts for the wise stewardship and the constant Brazilian efforts to de-escalate the crisis. Mr. President, Excellencies and colleagues, we align ourselves with the statement delivered by the European Union, and we would like to add some remarks in our national capacity. We are meeting today at an unprecedented dramatic juncture, almost 20 days after the heinous terrorist attacks by Hamas now left the world in shock, brutally murdering innocent people, exterminating entire families, annihilating the dreams of a young generation dancing at a music festival. In the wake of such a senseless rampage, I would like to remember that terrorism is never, never justifiable. That is why we condemned the atrocious coward attacks by Hamas. That is why we condemn the continuous indiscriminate firing of rockets from the Strip. That is why we firmly condemn hostage-taking and we demand the immediate, unconditional release of all hostages without any precondition. That is why Italy firmly stands in solidarity with Israel, recognizing its right to self-defense in compliance with international law, international human rights law, and international humanitarian law. At the same time, we cannot ignore that Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people and that Palestinian people in Gaza have been suffering immensely in recent days. It is therefore urgent to address the gravity of the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip and to allow the safe and unimpeded passage of aid in order to deliver food, water, fuel, electricity, medical care, medicines, and safe shelter. The Middle East is becoming a powder keg, and the risk of a spillover of the conflict at a regional level is just around the corner. In efforts to avert this scenario, Italy continues its constructive engagement with the partners in the region. Prime Minister Meloni was last Saturday in Cairo for the summit convened by President al-Sisi. Prime Minister Meloni recently met inter alia with both the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, and President Abbas, and King Abdullah of Jordan. Minister Tajani has been in contact with all the international and regional partners traveling to Israel, Jordan, Egypt, and Tunisia. It is important that all parties take immediate steps to de-escalate and avoid any provocation and miscalculation. Finally, I would like to recall the pressing need for a political solution on the basis of internationally agreed parameters, leading to a two-state solution. It is necessary, even in this darkest hour, to be forward-looking, to relaunch a political horizon and get back to work on the two peoples, two states solution. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Italy for their statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.